High rent, a housing shortage, and more locals on the verge of homelessness. Nevada lawmakers say they are making headway to address those concerns, but others have concerns about government overreach, making the housing crisis worse and the spread of more homeless camps. Fox 5's Jacqueline Schultz explains.
We're all a few bad months away from potentially being houseless.
A minimum wage earner would need to work 62 hours to afford a studio apartment.
In Nevada's housing crisis, many in 2023 face challenges getting a rental, paying rent, or staying off of the streets. Several Democratic lawmakers have proposed solutions headed to the floor that could face fierce debate. First, a Senate bill protects the rights of the homeless to camp in public places, preventing cities or counties from forcing them out. Other proposals, a change in eviction procedures meant to give a tenant more time to act. Landlords would have to file in court an affidavit of rent owed before an eviction notice. Regulation of rental fees, requiring every rental application getting a proper review and notice, and full disclosure and caps for costs from cleaning to eviction.
They have submitted application after application after application fee, and they never hear back as to why they were rejected. You get the correct communication.
And finally, the Neighborhood Stabilization Act, capping rental increases to a cost of living index.
We have Wall Street landlords, private equity, large corporations buying homes, apartments, Airbnbs, cornering the market, raising rents beyond affordability, causing evictions and churns of residency, and creating a generation of renters and denying that generation the American dream of owning a home.
The supply completely drops, and that just causes the demand to increase, so to speak, right, inversely. And it just causes rents to go skyrocketing. And one of the things that Nevada is great at doing is over-regulating.
Republican Assemblywoman Danielle Gallant owns Guardian Realty, specializing in property management, and is a landlord herself. She and others argue caps on rent raises will lead to what we see in San Francisco, home prices getting higher till few can afford it. Gallant says there's still negotiations to be made on bills, from fees and evictions to protect struggling mom-and-pop landlords trying to do the right thing and avoid foreclosure. But she says all these bills do not address a glaring issue, the need for more housing in Nevada.
If we actually want to solve the housing crisis, we have to allow developers to build at a much faster rate. What we really need to do is really roll back on the regulations and allow building to happen at a much faster rate.
Jacqueline Schultz, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
Gallant and other Republicans also voiced fierce opposition to the homeless camping bill, arguing funding for mental health should be the priority.